along with the people in this class, I think we had over 100 other views, in the class. So if you're one of the people that is watching after the fact, please feel free to email us questions. Although it says Jennifer Green on my name, this is Cantor Smolash at Temple Israel, MSMOLASH at temple-israel.org. Feel free to send questions. We'd love you to join live, but happy to have you joining after the fact at any point. And we're using the this edition of the Tanya. It looks like this. It comes from Kohut Publishing, which you can see a little sign there. So if you want to buy this, those are the page numbers we're following. And I apologize, last week we did not, we thought we were recording. You can confirm for me, everybody sees a record sign now. We are recording. Looks like we are to me. So hopefully we'll get this up. If you're seeing my face, then we have. And let me review what we did last week, because we finished chapter 27. So it'll be a bit of a review for those that that were with us live last week. But 27 began, and the bigger picture is how to approach everything we do with joy, right? So a big smile from everybody if you can. When we're learning with joy, we learn better, we function better, we think better, we feel better. When we have joy, when we're interacting with our friends and families, we're more other-centered, we're more useful. And when we're connecting with God at Temple Israel in any way, at services or in learning, when we do with joy as well, we're more effective. So just everything we learned in the first section of the book on how to manifest my soul property, the two paths of meditation, it all works better with joy. That's one of the major new secrets that the Baal Shem Tov introduced to Judaism, and that continues with the Hasidic approach to Kabbalah ever since. This past chapter, 27, we looked at what to do if the reason I'm not joyful is because I'm unhappy with the kind of person I am. Not something I've done, not something that's happening, but my quality of what I am, right? Because these people that we're addressing, they're already functioning at the level of Beinoni, so they're already well past me, right? But even though their conscious thought, conscious speech, or normal speech and behavior is all at the level of a tzaddik, right? Everything that they decide to think about, decide to say, or decide to do, that all is on the level of a tzaddik. And looking at even their thoughts, you can see no difference. But what their heart pops into their mind to consider thinking about, what they think about thinking about, if you will, that is just like me. That's just like any normal person, and they're always struggling to maintain their thoughts at other-centered level, their speech, and their behavior. So what do they do if they're working to get their insides closer to their outsides and just is not budging? They still have these problematic thoughts. And the Alter Rebbe says, why be depressed? That's reason to celebrate and be even happier. Why? To put it simply, there's a mitzvah in the Shema of do not follow after your eyes and your heart, do not stray after them. And it's an actual mitzvah like the other mitzvahs. And who can do that mitzvah? A tzaddik, a Beinoni, or a rasha?
A Beinoni and a rasha.
Beinoni and rasha. Tzaddik can't. Right? So it's the Beinonis and the rashas like me that can actually say, my heart wants me to, stress about this, or focus on this, or have a resentment meditation on this, and I'm just going to divert my mind to the exact opposite, and now I've done a mitzvah. So why be happy? Because this is when I was just doing laundry or cooking or doing a report at work, neutral stuff. So here I am living life. It's all fine, but I'm not giving tzedakah. I'm not learning Torah. I'm not growing my soul necessarily. I'm just doing neutral stuff. Suddenly, in the middle of doing laundry, it occurs to my mind to think about something counterproductive. And what do? I redirect my mind. Now, instead of just doing laundry or doing a report, I'm doing a mitzvah. And wouldn't you be happy to be doing a mitzvah instead of laundry? So that's, suddenly we've transformed just neutral time into spiritually very productive time. And he describes how much light we bring up in the spiritual world and how much we raise up the sort of glory, the surrounding light that the Ein Sof emanates, and really paints for us the impact we have. So it just turns everything on its head. Rather than being depressed that my insides are just like this, no, I just had the opportunity to do a mitzvah. And like we said, perhaps it's for that I was created. Then the second piece, he brings us a mushal, correspondence to give us a little taste of what he's talking about, where he says there's two kinds of delicacies, right? Right. This was Isaac asked Esav to prepare, and he says, "Make me delicacies," and he points out, the Alter Rebbe points out it's plural because we make two kinds of delicious foods for God. One is sweet stuff, banana pudding, yummy, right? Or you name it. And that's what tzaddikim do. They make just stuff that's just sweet and God loves it. There's also chocolate or lemon meringue pie. That's where you take something that's tart or bitter and you work it and you transform it till it becomes something even more delicious, perhaps. And that's what a Beinoni does. That when they prepare delicacies, it's from something bitter. It's from that struggle that we have. But when we work at it, we create something beautiful that God loves, that's delicious. And then finally, at the end of the chapter, sorry, that email just distracted my train of thought. Amazing how your mind can just go somewhere else and just a whole story, right? This is exactly what we're going to talk about in chapter 28. So beautiful. But yeah, so the end of the chapter, we have a technique which I love, which I did yesterday, which is you can actually do spiritual work and create tremendous light kabbalistically simply by what's called iskafia. Will you say that for me? Iskafia.
Scafia.
Iskafia is the word we use for just stopping the animal soul. Just, whoa, go to your room, right? It's one of those. No, we're not reasoning, we're not transforming, we're just like, you're not going to do that now. So,
is that a Hebrew word, iskafia?
I think it is Hebrew, not Aramaic. I'm not entirely sure, but I know it sounds like Aramaic when you say it with it's itkafia. But Maya, can you answer that? Is iskafia, is that Aramaic or Hebrew? Is hafcha?
Can you pronounce it again?
You sound like an instrument there. I can't hear you. Say it again.
I can hear you. Can you?
There, that's better.
Can you pronounce it again?
Eat.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Hafcha.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
So is זה עברית או זה ארמית? Eat kafia, eat hafcha.
It sounds Aramaic to me. It doesn't sound Hebrew, but I can check that.
Okay, we're calling it Aramaic. I'm not sure. I should know that. That's a good question. Thank you. But what we're calling iskafia, that's just stopping the animal soul. It's stopping the animal soul. When we do that, even for, as he says, a brief moment, it's an opportunity for tremendous spiritual work because we're nullifying it, right? We're lowering it. And by doing that, we do the same thing. We actually smash down klipa here, which creates great, tremendous flows of light upstairs in the spiritual worlds, especially if the kind of person that would automatically just do stuff that my animal soul wants to do. When I take even a minute or 5 minutes or 20 minutes, and I just say, just because you like doing it, I'm going to pause, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to not do it, I'm just going to delay. That creates tremendous change in the whole system around me and in the whole spiritual worlds. So what it looks like is, he describes that, in older times, the time to eat breakfast was 4 a.m. This is, by the way, this is halachic hour, so it's not exactly 4 a.m, but the 4th hour. But Torah scholars would eat in, what did you say, it's the 7th hour, the 6th hour? 6th hour. Now, Torah scholars were eating the 6th hour not so they could study more Torah, because they were studying beforehand and they kept studying after. So they still have the same amount of Torah. They were just putting off eating so they could learn some Torah instead of eating and then get back to it. So the same amount of time they spent, what was the advantage of putting off breakfast? That they wanted to eat, but instead of eating, they were waiting a bit and learning Torah. And that's what it looks like. So you and I can do this actual practice just calmly when I wake up for coffee in the morning. I didn't do it this morning, by the way, I was in a rush. But, you know, you might brew your tea or your coffee or whatever it is. And now when you're like, ready for my coffee, put it on the table, say to yourself, now a little bit of time for iskafia, make sure that I'm doing this not just for the animal soul, but actually so I can be alert and awake and serve God and help my family. Yesterday, I was having a nice soda because I was thirsty. And before I drank it, I was there ready to go. I was on automatic. And this is all neutral stuff. I'm allowed to have a soda. I personally do it with a blessing. I've done my blessing. This is just fine, normal stuff, right? But I stopped myself and I said, no, I'm teaching this technique. I got to do it once a day at least. So I put it down on the table. I picked up a text that I was learning, and I try to do it as long until I forget that I'm doing it, right? So I'm wanting soda and I'm learning. I'm wanting soda and learning, and then I forget about the soda I'm learning. At that point, when I remember, I'm like, okay, now I could drink the soda on my terms, right? Knowing that I'm doing it so that I can then keep learning and teaching and helping and being a divine soul-centered person as much as I can. And the Alter Rebbe says, in that moment, you create tremendous, tremendous light. You bring enormous amounts of light into the spiritual worlds. And that also, as he says at the end, that light trickles down and helps the person doing it to actually change their insides. So in the end, they do become, say, a more refined person in the inner aspects of their soul.
I used to watch you do that at the Soul Cafe, and now I know why.
So it is a little weirder than I think, right? You're like,
yeah, no, I watch you sitting there praying, and before you touch your coffee or whatever. Now I know why.
I was learning, yeah, but yeah.
Right.
So
right.
So you might, I guess, having a plate of food on the table, most people dig in.
Right.
The plate arrives. I kind of push it away. I take 2 minutes. I learn some Torah, and then I bring it back, and now we've done work. And you can also do it as a final note with your thoughts. So this is not just for food, but even more refined. If I'm driving along and suddenly I have a daydream that I love thinking about, and it's a perfectly fine daydream, maybe it's a beautiful moment that happened in my life and it gives me pleasure to think about it. Again, it's perfectly neutral. There's nothing wrong. But simply because my brain likes to think about it, if I say, no, I'm just going to think about the opposite. I'm not going to do something just because it gives my animal soul pleasure. Again, that creates great light above. Or even if I just delay thinking about it, right? So even more subtle, but we can do the same practice with our, and it feels like it's just a little nothing moment to us, but the Alter Rebbe says, no, you're transforming yourself and you're creating great, these are profound practices. Any questions on that before we go on to 28?
Is there a time frame?
He says, even a very small amount of time. Like he specifically says, I mean, you could do it for an hour or 2 hours, like the sages of old, or you could do it for a minute or 2 minutes. And even, especially with thought, even pushing something off for literally a minute or 2 minutes, that creates the advantage there. That does the work. So they're really, even the shortest time frame. Chapter 28. So as we said, and here we're on page 355. And here we're looking not at what happens if I'm upset that something's occurring to me to think about during neutral times during the day, but if while I'm praying, and I don't know, it doesn't really say it, but I assume while I'm learning, it's the same phenomenon, right? While you're learning, you should be focused on learning. While you're praying at Temple Israel, if you're saying the V'ahavta, you should be focusing on the words and not about rent or about a flat tire or about anything else. So what happens if during the time that you're praying, you also have other thoughts? So you're at Temple Israel, you're ready, you're singing the Michamocha, you're ready for the Avot, and you're in your kavanah, you have this sense that you want to be with part of the community and connect to God, and suddenly you're thinking about taxes or whatever, right? And this isn't the same problem as what happens when thoughts occur to me during neutral time, because to say, well, I should be glad that it occurred because I'm redirecting my mind and now I'm doing a mitzvah, I was already doing a mitzvah, I was praying. So we have a different issue here, right? And really, if my connection to God is deep and I'm a spiritual person and I'm praying, why would I think of something else? Why would I lose my focus, right? If I'm having a conversation with my wife, who I love, I've been waiting all afternoon because she's working and I'm working. We find the time and we sit and we connect. How are you? What's going on? Right? Why would I suddenly start thinking about other things that seems to say there's a problem in the relationship on my end? And so is that a reason to be depressed? That when I finally sit down and have the time with my community to connect to God, I'm thinking about dinner, or I'm thinking about anything else. So should we be depressed, and should we see it as if my prayers are not really on the right level? I haven't really done a good job. I haven't given my part to our services, because I'm sitting here and every 3 minutes I find that my mind has wandered to something else. A good question, right? And especially you can imagine people who lived in his time and students of the Alter Rebbe who really took davening seriously, that this was a part of who they were, this is their identity. For them to get distracted while they're davening, what kind of person does that, right? That's so coarse, they might get depressed. The Alter Rebbe says again, of course, no, you're always serving God with joy, 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 right? And that's actually considered a commandment, to serve God with joy. And so how do we turn this on its head and say, not only should we not be depressed that I'm distracted while I'm davening, but you should see it as that your davening is even better and you should be happy. Just keep going with your davening with a sense of joy. So why don't we dive in so we get inside the text a little bit. It's already 10:25, and then we'll talk as we go. So Ellen, you're going to do the English first. Vafilu imnaflim lo hirhure tavot ushar machashavot zarot bishat havodah batara or bitfilah bechavana. Even if
lustful imaginings or other extraneous thoughts occur to him during his service of God in Torah or in prayer with kavanah.
So that's the problem, right? And this is either this is just neutral stuff, or it's even negative things that are popping up that I have to avert my mind from, right? So whatever happens, when we're learning or praying or whatever, we should be focused on that. And now suddenly I'm all over the place. So what kind of person am I, right? Al yashit lev alehen ela yasiach dato mehen karega. Rick, please.
He should pay them no attention, but avert his mind from them immediately.
Right, so should I struggle with a thought? Should I engage a thought? Should I examine the thought? Should I pick apart the thought, analyze the thought? The Alter Rebbe says exactly the opposite. Completely ignore it. Just completely ignore it. And this is really one of the hallmarks of the Hasidic approach to Kabbalah and to mastering the flow of thought, is that while in Eastern meditation, we sometimes, if a thought will intrude, we just allow the thought to have its life and we observe it and we let it kind of flow away like a river. In Kabbalah and in Hasidus, now once I've noticed a thought and I say, okay, I'm just going to observe the thought, now I've decided to let the thought in. I've opened that door, so to speak. And it's not like there's no neutral moment where we say, well, there's just a thought in my mind that I'm now thinking about, but it's not me choosing to think about it. I'm just letting it be, right? No, I made the choice to say I'm going to observe that thought. That's a choice I made, and now there's no detachment really. I'm attached to that thought. I've decided to stay attached to that thought, right? So in Kabbalah, once a counterproductive thought enters the mind, we don't ever say, let me observe the thought. We say, this is something I assess I should not be thinking about. I'm not going to struggle with it. I'm not going to observe it. I'm not going to let it have its life and its moment in my mind. I'm just going to redirect myself to the exact opposite. And that's the technique we use, really, other than tzaddikim, as we'll see, that's the technique we use as a rule to empty the mind of counterproductive content during meditation. So here again, what's the opposite? It's the next word in the prayer, right? So I'm in the middle of the hafta, and suddenly I realize I've been thinking about the kitchen sink that's leaking, or something maybe even more concerning. And I realize that I've been thinking about it. I don't stay there and say, kitchen sink, let me observe you. You'll flow away like a river. I don't. Look, I'm in the middle of praying, so I got distracted. We'll see what it means in a moment, but redirect the moment you're aware, redirect back to the next word in the Mehafta. As we say in Yiddish, just weiter. You just go on, weiter, right? And so you redirect from we'll call it the alien thought, we'll call it, back to the word, what it means,
Interpret?
and I go back to my kavanah. Is there a question?
No, but it's like you said before, push it away with two hands.
Yeah, Aaron, is that you? It sounds like there's someone making kind of noises around the phone that isn't muted. I don't know who it is.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Thanks. And so that's the technique. You just pay no attention. And here he's going to bring up, as I mentioned last week, but not on the recording, he's going to bring up a technique that was actually quite well known in his time that the Baal Shem Tov introduced. And he's going to clarify that that technique is not for the likes of me, and that we shouldn't be so silly as to try and do it. Right? V'gam al yihi shoteh. That's a strong word. Lasok b'ha'la'at hamidot shel hamachashava zara kanoda. Noreen, please.
Nor should he be so foolish as to engage in sublimation of the midot of the extraneous thought,
As is known.
as is known.
Right? And the word shoteh, Maya, are you with that thing? Shoteh means dummy in Hebrew, right? Don't be an idiot. Don't be a...
Yes, you're right.
Foolish is being kind, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
Don't be a knucklehead, right? Don't be a knucklehead and think you're going to do this sublimation of the midot, right? Hala'at midot of this thought, as is known. So this is something that people know. And just in brief, this was the Baal Shem Tov's technique, where he said every thought has an emotion that is driving it. Right? I'm not talking about chokhmah and bina now. I'm not talking about my attributes of intellect. I mean an actual physical thought, like I'm doing the times tables, or I'm remembering a conversation, and it's running. My brain is physically active. Yeah, my brain is physically active, and I have an actual thought. Any thought that's now in my brain, it came from an emotion, right? If I'm thinking about brownies, it's because I love brownies. I have a sense of love and pleasure, and chesed has attached itself to brownies and is now plucking that out of my memory to bring to my brain. If I'm having a resentment thing, and I'm concerned about a conversation I had 10 years ago. Sorry, someone, I don't know who's not on mute. There's conversation in the background. So just if you would, anyone who's on, if there's someone talking around you, just check you're on mute, please. If I'm angry about something, right? That's the animal soul taking gevura, and that emotion of fear, and it's dropping a thought into my mind. Every thought has an emotion driving it. And so this sublimation of the midot is when I have an intruding negative thought or distracting thought, I say, okay, this thought means that an emotion is running, it's revving. That's an opportunity. Let me find the emotion that's driving this thought, and let me redirect it from this direction, animal soul, to this direction, divine soul. So if I love brownies and I'm in the middle of the hafta and I'm thinking about the brownies I'm going to have for dessert, okay, I love brownies, but I could also love God. That's an even more important love, and love praying. So let me take that love that was directed towards brownies and now redirect it towards God and praying. And now the thought will just erase because I've redirected the emotional engine that was driving it.
Don't you also have a thought about the thought? So it's kind of like a circle that continually goes on. How do you stop the thought of the thought?
Once the thought's in your mind, now the thought can trigger the thought again. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But the reason the thought's there and the power that gives the thought to drive the thought is the emotion, right? Some thoughts occur to me and it's whatever. Some thoughts occur to me and they have a hold on me because they have a strong emotion driving them. But if there was no emotional content whatsoever, the Alter Rebbe says you wouldn't have thought of it. Right now I can think of any thought possibly in the world. My emotions are constantly, they got their radar. They're looking for what I care about, what I feel. And when they finally season something that I have an emotion about, now they pick that thought and they drop it into my mind. So there's infinite thoughts I could think. None of them will actually appear consciously if there's no emotional kernel driving it. That's the root of the thought. Although this sounds great, the Alter Rebbe says, don't be a knucklehead, because Beinanim can't do that, right? When a tzaddik who is just functioning at 100% suddenly has an intruding thought or a negative thought, like what? Of course that wouldn't happen to a tzaddik, right? So why is that happening? It's because the tzaddik is so sensitive, or some tzaddikim, they're so sensitive to this spiritual aura that each of us has around us that they pick up the thoughts of other people. And it's not their thoughts, it's someone else's thoughts. So when a tzaddik, we hear the great figures, the Rebbes or the figures in the Torah. When a tzaddik would have an alien thought, they'd wonder which of their Hasidim they're talking to had that thought and why it was there. And they could go down to the emotional root of the thought. They could redirect it, and they could actually sublimate the midot of that thought, and maybe even help their student who they picked up on. But for us, if we tried it, we just get lost in the emotion of the thought, and it's not productive. So this is really something the Baal Shem Tov taught for tzaddikim and not for beinanim, as we'll read. Ki lo nemru devarim hahem ela letzaddikim. Go ahead, Dan, please. Dan, you're in the English, please.
I'm up. Okay. For such things were intended only for tzaddikim.
One second. So a tzaddik can do that, but our job is just to redirect, not to try and get wrapped up and elevate this stuff. She'ein noflim lahem machashavot zerot shelahem ki'im mishel acherim. Joey, please. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, we moved around. Cindy, please.
Cindy.
Yeah, that you didn't hit the button there.
Okay. In whom there do not occur any evil thoughts of their own evil midot, but only from the midot of others.
So the actual attributes of a tzaddik are completely transformed. The animal soul is a second divine soul, so to speak. They're not going to have this kind of thing pop into their mind. When it does, it's because it came from someone that they're connected to, and they can actually elevate it. They can do this practice. אבל מי שנופל לו משלו מבחינת הרע שבליבו בחלל השמאלי. Joey, please.
But as for me, a Bainani, to whom there occurs an evil thought of his own, from the evil that is lodged in the left part of his heart, the evil midot of his animal soul.
So for us, it's not from somebody else, it's just from me. This is not so much an alien thought as it's a small ash thought. And I'm going to have a different, simpler technique. Ech yalehu lemala v'hu atzmo mikushar lemata. Sue Ellen, please.
How can he rise it up to the spiritual realm when he himself is bound below by his desire for material?
Right. So I think I have some thought. I'm going to find the emotion. I'm going to raise it up. And elevate it, and he's saying, no, you're down on the floor. You're in a pit. You're having these crazy thoughts, and you think you're gonna like pull your own collar and lift yourself up out of the pit. You're just pulling your own collar. You need someone above you who can reach down and pull you up closer to their level. That's a tzaddik, so they can do it. But a Bainani, and of course even more a Rasha, this is not productive. You're not going to lift yourself up from your own position. Now we get to what we do. אף על פי כן אל ייפול ליבו בקרבו להיות מזה עצב נבזה בשעת עבודה שצריך להיות בשמחה רבה. We're at Maxine.
Nevertheless, he must not be downhearted nor feel dejected and despicable because of this occurrence of extraneous thoughts during his service of God, when he ought to be most joyous.
And so I shouldn't be depressed. That's our theme here. In fact, this should make me happy, right? I'm praying, I'm trying to say the Amida, and suddenly I realized for the last 2 minutes, I've been thinking about a conversation I had, and I shouldn't say, oh, my Amida is no good, I'm not really praying, I'm not a deep person. I should be happy because of this. Why? Besumo alibo ki niflat hamachshava zara hi. מהקליפה שבחלל השמאלי העושה מלחמה בבני עם נפש אלוקית שבו. We're at Beth, please. You got your audio on, Beth? I don't hear you. So speak up. If you come back, please go ahead. And sorry, PB Rose, I haven't heard from you. Can you tell me, are you able to read? Do you have the text? No? Okay, Doreen, let's go to you.
Can you hear me, Cantor?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. On the contrary, he should draw fresh strength and intensify his determination with all his power to pray with concentration, with even greater joy and gladness.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I didn't read that Hebrew. Ela deraba yitchazek yoter v'yosik ometz b'chol kocho chavana tatfila v'chedva v'simcha yetera. And Aaron, if you can go on in the realization.
I don't have any. I don't have the book or anything.
Okay.
I'm just listening.
Maya,
Thank you.
Can you Maya? Do you want Maya to send you the PDF of the text?
Yeah, that would be nice.
I sent it to everyone like 30 minutes ago. Check my email. I just replied to the email that I sent yesterday. No, this morning.
Did you have that in your inbox, Aaron?
I'll check it later, though.
Oh, great. Okay, so Barbara, why don't you go ahead? Barbara, are you with us?
Mic is off.
I can't unmute. Okay. So anyone who hasn't read, please pipe up if you want to jump in. We're glad to have you here. Ellen, we're back to the top. In the realization?
In the realization that the foreign thought which occurred to him derives from the kelepa of the left part of the heart, which wages war within the how do you pronounce that? Benini. Against the divine soul within him.
I should be happy. Why? He's about to say, remember what we're talking about. This is two beings wrestling within me. I'm not one being. I'm not one soul. I'm two souls. And that's the whole theme of the Tanya, is that we're dealing with a struggle between two souls, and they're not just looking at each other. They're really fighting. Now, when you have two wrestlers, as we said, if they're just kind of like, they're sizing each other up, they're getting underhooks, or what do you call those, pummeling under, right? But no one's really made a move yet. They're just both kind of waiting, right? But the moment one of them really rushes in and tries to take the other one down, what does the second one do? Do they stay?
Fights harder.
Fights harder. You push back, right? So the moment one really goes for it, the other one now will try and stop their takedown or try and reverse it, right? So if I'm looking at my opponent and suddenly my opponent starts fighting even harder, what does it mean? What's my opponent reacting to?
To you fighting harder.
Right. So if I'm looking at my opponent's like, I'm just sitting here in my armchair. It's all good, right? You do your thing. I'm fine, and it's not bothering me. What does that mean about the effort I'm putting in?
It's not enough.
Well, nothing.
Just on automatic, right? So that's what's happening here, the Alter Rebbe is about to say. When I'm praying, my animal soul and my call it the evil inclination, right? If I'm just phoning it in and I'm just kind of like saying the words and I'm just, here to socialize or whatever it might be, socializing is great. But if that's all I'm pushing myself to, animal soul's fine. It'll let me sit and pray. It's like, fine, you just want to do that level. Like, I'm good. I have my techniques to deal with that. And you're not really trying too hard. So I'm just going to leave you alone, right?
You're no threat.
But if I'm really pushing myself and saying, no, today I'm going to connect deeper. Today I'm going to focus longer. Today I'm going to, my silent meditation, I'm going to really try and connect. Now the animal soul gets worried. Because, Smolash mean business today. And the animal soul gets out of its little lazy chair and it starts, trying to get me off my game. So what does it mean when I get a distracting thought? Was I praying worse or was I praying better?
Well, after you push the afterthought away, then you're praying better.
See, yep. No, you already hedged your bet there. But the Alter Rebbe says no. Even before you pushed your thought away, the reason the
animal soul fought because you were praying harder. Got it.
Yeah, the fact that you had a disturbing thought means you are already praying better, and you should be happy, right? Because if my animal soul's not bothering me, maybe I'm just going like my usual. But the fact that the animal soul bothered to get up and fight back means, today I did especially good. And so,
but also when the animal soul is fighting back, then you're even at a higher level because you're resisting it.
Yeah. Okay. That's good too. That wasn't his point, but that's good too. When I do ignore the animal soul, that strengthens me as well. I like that. But his point is just from the outset,
You're doing a good
fact that I'm
job.
having a disturbing thought does not mean my prayer is worse. It means my prayer is better. And so I should be happy. It's like, good. Today, now I'm really praying. I'm not just going at my comfortable level. I'm really pushing it, and that's causing the animal soul to try and
distract you.
You know, there's a story.
Does that happen when you need a challenge? When you need to have a challenge in your life?
How do you mean? I'm not sure what you're saying. Can you give me an example of what you're asking?
Well, I'm saying that that something's gone on, and all of a sudden you're praying, and then you have this disturbing thought, but there's actually something going on in your life that you need to focus harder on praying. The challenge.
You mean like, there's a relationship problem in my life, or there's a money problem in my life, and that's the reason I have the distracting thought, and that relates to it somehow? Is that what you're asking?
Not necessarily physical. Yeah, I just, I mean, is there a reason that there would be this challenge of a disturbing thought?
Well, yeah, it's what the reason we have the challenge is because we have invited the challenge, because we push harder, right? Like if I'm in a, if I'm in a math class, I'm just doing normal. Teacher's like, okay, I'll let you take the exam. You're doing great. You're learning. If I really push myself and excel, the teacher might say, you know what? Here's some extra material. I'm going to give you even harder stuff because you're really, you're going beyond the regular class level. So a student that's excelling, a good teacher will give them additional challenges. So I think, is that the answer to your question? The reason I'm being challenged.
Okay, you need to be challenged. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
The animal soul's there to keep me growing. It's not happy with just, letting me get better on my own. It wants to, be in the way as we learn to help me get even better, but on the face to get in my way.
Okay.
So there's a story that illustrates this. There was a Hasidic Jew who lived in the old country and owned an inn that he rented from the landowner and made a very good living. And this is a very, very God-fearing Jew, and really, really kind of followed all this kind of practice, every day, all the time. And the inn earned great money, and it was a very nice thing. But eventually, this elderly Jew retired, and his son came and took over the inn. And the son was also, practicing Jew, a caring Jew, but not like at the level of God-fearing as his father. And for whatever reason, the inn just dropped in income as soon as he took it over and stayed there. And it never rose to the level of profitability that his father had. After a good 2 years, when he realized this was a pattern, this younger Chassid went to his Rebbe and he said, I don't know, why is it that the same inn my father ran and could really, I'm doing all the same things business-wise, and yet, it's not working the same way. The Rebbe looked at him and he said, you're at the cash register, aren't you? You're there, taking the Russian, taking the rubles in for the drinks. Your father used to be at the cash register. When things were quiet, what would your father do? And the son thought, he said, oh, well, he always had, some learning or to heal him, and he'd always go right back to his learning, and that's what he'd do to pass the time. And the Rebbe said, and what do you do? He said, I don't know, I just wait for the next customer, I guess. And the Rebbe said, that's exactly it. So when your father was not busy, what was he doing? He was learning, he was praying, and the klipa, the spiritual element of the other side, it noticed that he was really creating a lot of light. And so it came in and it tried to interrupt him. And so every time, how is the klipa going to interrupt him? By managing to bring him customers. So every time he got back to learning, the klipa, in the world said, whoa, let's make sure that this doesn't happen too often, and sent him lots of customers. And then he'd keep going back to praying, and the klipa would keep saying, no, we got to disturb him again. And business was just hopping all the time. You're just sitting there waiting. The klipa's not worried, so the klipa's not sending you customers, right? So it's not just in ourselves, really, it's seen as being part of the world at large. That sometimes the more we engage in a positive way, the more, the world will respond as well. Sometimes, to our benefit, we'll never know.
Great.
And the realization, we're on 378. V'noda derech hanilchamim v'chein hanevakim yachad. Go ahead, Rick.
It is known that in the way of combatants who seek to destroy one another, and similarly of wrestlers who aim merely to topple one another.
And so we're back to how we started this section, that there's two wrestlers, and when one pushes harder, the other one pushes back. And if one is joyful and has energy, they'll beat the one that isn't joyful, even if they're the same strength. כשאחד מתגבר אזי השני מתאמץ להתגבר גם כן בכל מאמצי כוחו. Noreen.
That when one is gaining the upper hand, the other likewise exerts himself with all the resources of his strength in order to prevail.
Right, so the animal soul is now pushing back harder because I was working harder. I should be happy. ולכן כשנפש אלוקית מתאמצת ומתגברת להתפלל. Dan.
Therefore, in the battle between the divine soul and the animal soul, when the divine soul exerts itself and musters all its strength in prayer, thereby to weaken or even vanquish the animal soul.
So the reason the animal soul is dusting things up is because my divine soul was engaging with more power than normal. I did even better. אזי גם הקליפה מתגברת כנגדה לבלבלה להפילה במחשבה זרה שלה. Cindy.
The klipa of the animal soul, too, gathers strength to counter it, aiming to confuse and topple the divine soul by means of a foreign thought of its own.
That's why I was praying. I was working really hard, and my animal soul and the klipa that it draws from, it just said, well, we got a code red here. Let's send a little missile up to the brain and see if we can stop this business of a divine soul working so hard, right? So we really turned it on its head. Something where I might have been depressed. I say, oh, here I am learning Tanya and coming and praying, and I'm still having these distracting thoughts. I'm so coarse. Say, no, what do you mean? Right? First of all, the reason it's happening is because you did so well. You're improving and you're working. So congratulations. This is a silver medal, Smolash. And now Viter, just go back to praying. Don't pay any attention to the thought. Don't engage it. Just go to the next word and work even harder. And maybe another thought will come to show how hard you worked, right? And now ignore that one. 27th of Shvat. ולא כטעות העולם שטועים להוכיח מנפילת המחשבה הזרה, מכלל שאין תפילתם כלום. We're at Joey.
This refutes a common error. When foreign thought occurs to some people during prayer, they mistakenly conclude that their prayer is worthless.
Right. So remember what you said, Joey. You kind of still implied, well, once I deal with the thought, now I'm at a better level, right? So even subtly, we're still thinking, well, the fact that I thought, I wasn't in the right place clearly, but I can fix it and get to a higher level. Just the opposite.
You were already there.
Yeah, you were already higher. Right? The fact that the thought occurred to you doesn't mean your prayer is lower. It means it's actually stronger.
Right.
Sue Ellen, please.
For if one prayed properly and correctly, so they may mistakenly believe no foreign thoughts would arise in their mind.
Right. Common thing. Well, I'm a forceful prayer. I connect to God. I'm a spiritual person. When I pray, I don't get disturbed. I'm at that level, right? And then if I get disturbed, oh, now I'm depressed, and oh, my prayer wasn't good, and now maybe, it'll lead me to pray not as well, and the cycle begins, right? So just the opposite. No, the fact that it occurred to you means actually you're actually praying at a higher level. And here's it comes back to the theme of the Tanya. And while maybe for everyone here, this isn't like the most daily issue that gets them depressed, you see here that this actually, it speaks to our whole lives and to an important question, which is, if my ideal is A, and maybe I wake up in the morning, I say, I'm going to have a day where I'm going to do X, Y, and A, B, and C. And then during the day, one thing leads to another, and I find myself doing the opposite. Does that mean that if I prayed in the morning or I meditated or I set my ideal in the morning, that really was worthless, that it was hypocritical? That it didn't really sink in. It didn't, oh, look at me. That's who I really am, right? The fact that I might get up in the morning and say the Shema and say we're all one, and then 4 hours later, it's snapping at a family member or coworker, which I shouldn't do. But the fact that that happens, does that mean my prayers in the morning really, they were no good and they were of no value? Because it's easy to do that because we're a mix of things, right? And if we were one person, we could say, yeah, they were of no value. There I was saying I'm going to have a day acknowledging the oneness in every relationship. And here I am snapping at somebody. And so clearly, who am I? I'm mixed up. He says that would be true if you're one person, but you're two souls, you're two beings, you're two people. And so when you were praying in the morning, hopefully at my level, that was the divine soul. When I'm snapping at a coworker, which I shouldn't do, that's the animal soul. It's a different person. When we recognize that we're actually two souls struggling, now it's not just with prayer, but the whole phenomenon in life, the fact that I have this ideal and that I sometimes fail, or that in one domain I'm really great and I'm other-centered. In another domain I'm still immature. It doesn't mean that one negates the other. Right? It's my divine soul that's active when I'm being other-centered. It's my animal soul that's taken charge in the domain where I'm being an immature whatever. So the fact that they're struggling means the divine soul's work always has value, and it's not hypocritical to have these areas in our life where in some I seem to be very functional and the others I seem to be quite self-centered still. I'm not yet other-centered. Right, so back to our topic, which is prayer. אבל באמת לאמיתו הן שתי נפשות הנלחמות זו עם זו במוחו של אדם. But in fact, we're at, it's Maxine, I think?
They would be correct if there would be but one soul within a person. The same soul that prays being also the one that thinks and ponders on the foreign thoughts.
Go on, but in fact.
But in fact, there are two souls, each waging war against the other in the person's mind.
כל אחת חפצה רצונה למשול בו להיות המוח ממולא ממנה לבדה. Each of them, Beth, please. Or Beth, were you reading? No, you didn't have the text, right?
Right.
So let's go to Doreen, please.
But in fact, there are two souls, each waging war against the other in the person's mind.
Doreen, I love how you read. Whenever I hear your voice, I feel like I'm at the library at Temple. It brings me right back to the community. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so there's two souls. They're having a fight. So, by the way, when you had the distracting thought, that wasn't the divine soul. That was the animal soul. So don't think you're one person that doesn't know who you are or what you're doing. You're a divine soul that wants to pray. You're an animal soul that wants to distract the divine soul. כל אחת חפצה רצונה למשול בו ולחיות המוח ממולא ממנה לבדה. Each of them, this is back to Ellen, please.
I can't get on.
Oh.
Ron.
I got it.
Okay, Rick, go ahead.
Each of them wishes to and desires to rule and pervade the mind exclusively.
Right, so as we learned, each one of them wants to run the whole consciousness. This is Noreen, please. All thoughts?
All thoughts of Torah and the fear of God come from the godly soul, while all thoughts of worldly matters derive from the animal soul.
So this is basics from the beginning of the Tanya. The godly soul is the one that is learning Torah hopefully now. The godly soul is the one that likes to pray. The animal soul is the one that wants, brownies and a little more money maybe, whatever it is. They're two different beings, so don't be confused. And this is Dan.
Except that the godly soul is clothed within the animal soul.
Right, so that's why we feel like we're one being, because when the godly soul does anything, thinking, speaking, or acting, it has to go through the medium of the animal soul. So I feel like the whole thing is just one being in my experience. The other ever says, no, you got to distinguish, right? One is the animal soul, one's the divine soul. So we're finished. Let's do a little meditation here. We just did the bottom of 379. We'll start next class at 380. And if you just find yourself in a comfortable position, we're going to do just a couple minutes of our long short path. That should be a regular practice. And if you're new to us, email me. I'll send you the link to the review of the long short path and that system meditation. There's a 1-hour class that kind of covers the whole thing very quickly, so you can understand what we're doing. But just find yourself your back nice and long. Let your breathing slow down a little bit. And bring yourself to the 4 stages of breath. Breathing in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Remain there. 3, 2, 1. Breathing out. 3, 2, 1. And just stay there. 3, 2, 1. Follow the cycle again. Staying there. And out. Staying there. As you continue that cycle, if you like, focus on the breath just under your nostrils as it flows in and out. Just notice that spot under your nostrils, that there's cooler air flowing in and the warmer air flowing out. I think we're familiar with our wisdom gateway. That's the space between the end of the in-breath and the beginning of the out-breath. So that space between those moments, that'll be our wisdom gateway. Let's open that up. I feel like let's come back to our Shema meditation. And if you were praying sometime this morning, come back to that moment when you say the Shema. If you weren't, just picture the word Shema in your mind, Shin Mem Ayin. Fill your mind with the idea that the Shema alludes to Su Marom Enechem, lift up your eyes, from Isaiah, the scene of Su, the Mem of Marom, the Ayin of Enechem, lift up your eyes. The Shema is asking us to see everything from a higher perspective. Every thought that enters our mind, every word that should leave our mouths, every action we do, see the perspective of the divine soul. How are we helping others? And let that fill your mind in more and more detail, more and more color, more and more size. Let's have this moment be just a subtle anchor for the rest of our day. And so it can leave an impression on every moment. The impression of this moment of oneness is changing every thought I'll have, every word I'll say, every action of the day. That impression is infusing the whole day with a sense of oneness and joy, of course. If you're not with us live, feel free to stay here for another 5, 10, 15 minutes and deepen your meditation. But if you're with us, please open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, check your screen. And wonderful class, everybody. Maya, are you still there? When's the next class? Are we next week? I'm not looking at the schedule.
Yes, we have class next week.
Beautiful. And anyone who needs whether you are with us now or later, if you need the text, please email Maya. It's M-A-Y-A at temple-israel.org. She could send you a PDF of the text, and we'll continue with the rest of chapter 28 next week. Thanks, everybody. Such a pleasure.